What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 100 episodes recorded with those very executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, Cigna, and Google, the answer is clear. They learned lessons in leadership from the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. Some of our guests' athletic experience earned them a place in their sports Hall of Fame, like Chick-fil-A Chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claimed they were terrible in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them lessons they still use as leaders today. In partnership with Maxwell Leadership, I'm your host, Don Yeager, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful, positive change in your own organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Tom McAlpin, CEO of Virgin Voyages. Tom is a fifth-generation Floridian, and as a teenager, he earned money scraping barnacles off the bottom of boats. Today, he has taken his career from the boatyard to the boardroom with an exciting 30-plus years in the cruise industry. When I first met Tom a number of years ago, he handed me the coolest business card I had ever seen. He was, at the time, the chief executive of a one-ship cruise line called The World. Basically, a floating condominium, each cabin owned by one of those who were sailing year-round. The business card he handed me let me know I was talking to the president of the world. It remains the one business card I still keep under the glass on my desk. He also served as a founding member of the Disney Cruise Line and spent the final 5 years of his time with Disney as the cruise line's president. As CEO of Virgin Voyages, he leads a world-class team in all elements of ship design, sailor experience, construction, crew, safety, operations, and service delivery. He is the guy. He was inducted into the Florida State University College of Business Alumni Hall of Fame, and I can't wait for you to learn from him today. Remember to visit corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/146 and download the notes and reflection questions we put together for you.
Okay, you make the decision. Your company, your money, what would you do? You get some eyes that open really wide, like, well, I wasn't planning on making the decision. I was planning on providing support for the decision-making criteria, but it changes that mindset. Letting them make decisions in their career and feeling like they were empowered and they did this gives them that confidence and lets them grow. This is the big one. This is the risky one. This is rolling the dice. Now it's their decision. They've got ownership of it.
Tom, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's pretty clear you have salt water in your veins. Fifth generation Floridian, South Florida native. You even spent your teenage years scraping the barnacles off of the bottom of boats as a diver to earn spending money. Where did you get that initial passion for being on the water?
You know, I took 14 years away from South Florida up in Orlando and then came back to South Florida. And you know what? I'm back into it again with boating and fishing and doing all that fun stuff that you have to do if you live in South Florida. But, you know, we had a friend of the family who owned a boatyard and two of my brothers worked there. So I kind of followed along and started working at the ripe age of 13 years old, doing all kinds of odd jobs, driving boats for film crews and diving and fishing and even as much as competitive water skiing.
Now, here you are running this massive cruise line. You're looking at these ships that are gargantuan. I have to imagine that being underneath a boat, cleaning the barnacles off of it, has to have served as this ability to have an understanding of everything, even to what's happening underneath the boat.
Yeah, look, I started my professional career in public accounting, and I learned from the boatyard days that that's not what I wanted to do long term, because I did every nasty job that is imaginable. But it taught you a lot. It taught you about the mechanics, the fundamentals of how these big behemoth ships work. Now, when we talk about big engine overhauls and problems and dry docks, you understand it.
Wow, language of business. you grew up in a family of 9. You practically could have run a full court basketball game. Talk to me about what role athletics played in your childhood.
I've thought about this before and a lot about leadership. It comes from mom and dad. Think about what are the skills to be a leader. It's not just one thing. It's not just, having the academics or the intelligence. You need to be intuitive. You need to get along with people. You need to be a leader. And a lot of those skills, fundamentally, you learn in a big family. I mean, you learn about teamwork, getting things done. You learn how to be humble. We grew up pretty modest. We weren't poor, but, we didn't have a lot of luxury. You learn not to be too sensitive, how to resolve conflicts. You need to get out of trouble. Great work ethic that came from both my parents. You learn that as part of the family. I tell you, all my brothers and sisters have that work ethic. A little bit of healthy competition too. We're a best of friends and family, but there's always that little bit of competition. Especially as we got into high school, all 9 kids went to the same high school. So from a period of 1969 to 1984, we had a McAlpin at Miami Springs Senior High School consecutively. We didn't miss a year. I was on the football team. I had not played football in an organized manner up until then, but all 5 of the boys wrestled, and it was a grueling sport. You really learn a lot about competition and dedication and what it takes to be an individual performer and as part of a team as well. Even though it's an individual sport, the teamwork that you get by pushing each other to the limits, making sure that everybody is showing up for those practices. I mean, practices are grueling, giving their best each and every day. I wrestled 188 class, which was second to the last. I'm not a patient person. I had to sit there and watch 10 other wrestlers wrestle before I had my chance, like a lion pacing back and forth and back and forth. But you look at what those other wrestlers were doing and you see the good moves that they make and they remind you, you have a set of core moves that I had, and I just want to continue to remind myself when to do that and how to do it, and the fact that you can do it and build confidence. And when you see your teammates winning, that gives you strength and confidence and builds that up. When you see your team not winning, that also gives you strength and confidence. Say, now there's more pressure on me. I've got to do it.
Wow. You end up being in a part of the team that launches Disney Cruise Line, where you focus on the family experience. How do you get to Disney?
KPMG were the auditors for Royal Caribbean. I was recruited and joined a small cruise line that ultimately became part of the Royal Caribbean group. I ran the corporate and strategic planning group, so we analyzed and evaluated all these different acquisition and things to do. One of the projects that we looked at was potentially doing a joint venture with Disney. This was back in the early 90s. Wow. That didn't work for a lot of reasons, but Disney decided to go it alone. And, they had a fantastic brand. They had lots of money. What they didn't have was the expertise. They put together a team, and I was hired to be the first CFO of Disney Cruise Line and wrote the business plan and together with some other folks and presented that to Michael Eisner, and off we went. So it was a whole new way to vacation with the family, the Disney way. What was really unique about it, it was really for the first time that as Disney, you could control the entire experience from soup to nuts. From the time you get on the ship, the entire experience was controlled. And that allowed you to do some phenomenal things. We learned that differentiation was really one of the keys to success, a new way to vacation with the kids on the ship and take you to unique destinations and have a fantastic time on board. So you've got to add new things, like Disney has the rotation dining, they have world-class entertainment. But one of the things they did is they eliminated casinos. Casinos were not an important part of the family vacation. Moms loved the fact that casinos weren't there because dads would spend more time with the family.
And what an incredible window of time. Disney Cruise Lines is now iconic, but you had to look for your space in the universe and then how to maximize, maybe adding some things, but it also may be subtracting.
That's right. It's not only about what are you willing to add to be different, but what am I willing to give up to really show that this is a different experience? We did that at Virgin. We took a very similar type of a strategy here that says, look, when you look at the cruise industry, there's a lot of similarities there. Great experiences, but they're trying to be all things to all people. If you went on a cruise, you took the branding off and logos off, there's a lot of similarities there. Say, hey, how do we do this differently? How do we create a different type of an experience? What are we willing to do to give up in order to set our mark on that segment. And for us, it was about not having kids. This is an adult experience. Creating something for adults allows you to create a much more sophisticated, romantic, fun journey that you just can't do with kids. We love kids, but there's a place for them and there's a place for adults as well.
Right.
When we originally developed the original business plan for Virgin Voyages, we were not going to be exclusively adults. We were going to be adult centric. As we did the research and talked to people, it was the moms again to say, hey, no. I need a vacation from my kids as well. I need time to get away. And secondly, I don't feel comfortable bringing my kids on something that is meant to be an adult experience because I can't control my kids. So we learned from that and took a hard look and said, can we do this without kids? Can we do? And the more we talk to people, the more engaged we found that people are on this topic. Today, the number one reason why people go on Virgin Voyages is because it's an adult-centric vacation made for adults. I have 2 great kids. I have 2 great granddaughters, but I was also at Disney. I don't have kids pushing every button in the elevator. I don't have screaming kids at the pool. We've done research that showed scientifically when you take kids and put them in water, they scream. So look, it is all about differentiation. It is all about creating something that is different and unique. People will pay for that, whether it's getting more customers or people paying a premium as we expect to do. If you try to be all things to all people, that's very difficult. Now, existing businesses that already have a product, that makes it more difficult, but you've got to take those risks. You've got to continue to redefine and reinvent yourself. I believe that creating something different and unique in a niche market is the thing to do. We've created a boutique hotel experience on the high seas.
Where previously you were trying to bring essentially many of the aspects of a castle to the high seas.
That's right. It's just a different focus on a different market, but a lot of similarities in how we executed between those 2 things. Both are very successful and very proud to be part of both of them from the early start. To create 2 cruise lines is pretty cool. One for the families and then one for the non-families, if you will.
That's awesome. One of the things that stands out about your current work at Virgin is your need to lead a world-class team in all elements, from ship design to the experience of those who are sailing, to the construction, to the crew, to the safety operations. It feels like you have your hands in a lot of key elements of that operation. How do you keep involved so much as a leader into those key little elements and balance that with giving decision-making away to your team?
My key to success is all about hiring great people. If you hire great people, let them do their job, give them the resources and the support that they need, and then hold them accountable. That's the key to success. And, I pick the things out that I like to be involved in, and I stay involved in the most important things. Developing the customer experience was important, so I became very engaged in that part. Still have my fingers in everything of the business, but you've got to rely on people to make those day-to-day decisions so they feel empowered and comfortable and confident in making those decisions, not relying on Tom McAlpin to make the decision. We're trying to fill a lot of capacity in a very short period of time after COVID. So it's ideas that the team has come up with and said, what can we do with itinerary development to help with that? The team came up with some ideas, top secret stuff, but we said, look, go off and do the homework, figure out what needs to be done, and then bring it back. What I often have done, and especially do this for young leaders, is say, if this was your company and your money, what would you do? Your company, your money, what would you do? Okay, you make the decision. You get some eyes that open really wide, like, well, I wasn't planning on making the decision. I was planning on providing support for the decision-making criteria, but it changes that mindset. Now, you don't let them make the massive, big, but you know what? Letting them make decisions in their career and feeling like they were empowered and they did this gives them that confidence and lets them grow. This is the big one. This is the risky one. This is rolling the dice. Now it's their decision. They've got ownership of it.
Your company, your money. What would you do? Walk me through, as a leader, holding them accountable.
Look, knowing what our job is, what the culture is, what is my role and what is my job and how do I feel accountable here? It's make sure that everybody knows what their objectives are, making sure that those objectives are completely aligned with the corporate culture so that we're delivering. And then I've got to deliver against those objectives as well. fundamentally, of course, you've got your OKIs that are out there, but it's more than that. It's making sure that the business is successful. We're all behind it. It's all part of our corporate culture.
So in both cases, Disney and Virgin, you were tasked with working within the confines of a larger organization, but creating new standalones. How do you build the culture of the larger Disney Virgin ecosphere into this new standalone?
Yeah, I think when you look at Disney, there's already a very, very strong culture. It was easy to adapt that culture and then fine tune it into the cruise experience, and maintaining the Disney Cruise Line as a separate entity, I think was really important to do that. When we come to Virgin, this is really a completely new startup business. This expanded what Virgin is all about. So we spent a lot of time looking deep into what is our business purpose? What does that really mean? Because look, when you start a cruise company, it's not Tom's Cruise Line. That would be not successful. This is about creating a great business, but you need a lot of people behind you focused on the right thing. And the culture is what guides that. So we created what we call an epic sea change for all. This had to be significant. For all meant across 5 of the major stakeholders. At the core of that is our sailor. We call our passengers sailors. The experience had to be different. But it was more than that. It was about, what do we do for our communities? We want to be the ship that everybody wants to see coming into port. So we have to build those relationships with our ports. It's about taking care of our travel partners, our trade. We call them first mates because the first mate is the right hand of the captain. So we developed programs with them and commission structures that were very unique. It's about our crew. We say that we want this to be the best gig of their life. So we take good care of them. I learned early in my career at Disney, you know what? If you want your customers to be taken care of, take care of your crew. They're away from home. We give them free Wi-Fi so that they can communicate to their family back home, showing them some family love. Beyond that, it's about the environment. We spend a lot of time focused on what can we do, the right things that we can do for our ship and our design of our ship and the overall experience. Richard Branson lives on an island in the Caribbean. Keeping the oceans clean is part of our DNA. Now, look, it can also go too far. You've got to keep it in the guardrails and make sure it doesn't go astray, because everybody tries to do things that are too different. Then you may have stuff that may be too strange, too different. But to be honest with you, we experienced a little bit of that. In the early days, people knew we were different because we were harping and we were different. And they said, well, how different are they really going to be? Let's wait and see what this experience is all about.
Yeah.
It worked out. You see the awards. It's a great experience. But all of these things put together shaped what our culture is going to be. Everybody in this company knows what an epic sea change is, an epic sea change for all.
From the start, you wanted your product to be different than the competitors. And one way you did that was delivering what you call rebellious lux. I got to pause for a second and ask you to define that for me.
Well, the cruise industry is a fantastic industry, very high customer satisfaction, high repeat factors, very profitable industry where we wouldn't be in this business if the cruise industry wasn't successful. But we wanted to show a different way to voyage. We wanted to attract cruisers and give them a different type of an experience. But we also wanted to attract the non-cruisers, the people that were going to all-inclusives, that were spending a lot of money to grow the overall industry. We've actually been embraced by the cruise industry as well, because 30% of our guests that are coming on board have never been on a cruise before. What does that differentiation mean? Look, you could have a fantastic time. We want to treat you like a billionaire without all the stuffiness. It's getting what you want, where you want it, when you want it. It doesn't mean marble as far as the eye can see. It doesn't mean sitting down at a table with 22 different glasses and 4 different forks that I always get confused which ones to use anyway. It's more of a laid back, fun experience.
I love what you said here, that you asked yourself the question, who's your customer and what appeals to them? Sometimes it feels like many of us out here in the world of business are struggling sometimes to identify, like, who is exactly our customer? Was there some way that you tried to make sure you could ask that question in a way that gave you back answers that you've come to use?
Yeah, fair amount of research, some where we had focus groups, others where we did more quantitative research to understand where is the gap in the experience that's out there today. What are people looking for that's different? What did they love about cruising? What did they not like about cruising? We've provided that element of a lot more flexibility. Dine when you want your dining. It's not just 6 o'clock and 8:30. There's not just two shows. There's entertainment going on all the time, like a boutique hotel where you can go to different places at different times. We have cravers on board who are looking for different type of experience. We want people that were looking for the things that are off the beaten path. So our itineraries, we try to have at least one overnight or one late night stay in each port of call, because our customers want to engage with the locals, want to understand the local culture, and maybe go off and have a dinner at one of these ports of calls. If you're just leaving at 5 o'clock every day, you really can't experience all that.
That is so true. So 2020, you all are ready. The first ship is in the water and COVID-19 hits. You literally were on the precipice of pulling the anchor up and heading out, looking for the gap in the experience, and we're going to go fill it. And then suddenly, completely out of your control. All the things that you try to control, this one you couldn't. How do you pivot?
I'll tell you, I couldn't be more proud of the team. It was really hard to do. I mean, we had these magnificent launch ceremonies in New York scheduled. We had celebrities, we had big shows, we had media coming. We were on the way from Liverpool to New York 3 days out, and COVID broke in New York, and we said, there's no way that we can be part of this. We didn't know how long COVID was going to last, but nobody was talking about anything other than COVID. We decided to cancel that launch. The toughest decision of my life was making that decision to turn back to Miami, and went back home, and along the way started making those plans as to what we were going to do. Who knew how long COVID was going to last? And we had to make some tough decisions because we had limited amount of capital. We didn't want to burn capital. And luckily I have got some great thought partners in my investors in Bain Capital and Virgin Group. We sat together and said, we hate this, but we have to do it. We are launching a brand. We are not launching a ship. We rallied the team around it, and there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of dreams that were being crushed, but we're going to do whatever we need. We delayed one ship for several months, which was costly, but it was the right thing to do. We could fill our ships at lower rates, but that says something about your brand and who you are. This is a premium experience. We've designed a premium ship, and we're delivering against that. We don't want to do anything that's going to damage our reputation. It's costly, but it's the right thing to do in the long run. We kept the vision. We will be successful. We're going to take the long view of this and do the right thing for our crew. We had to furlough some of our crew. We scaled back our operations in the office. We went to a 4-day work week. So there was a lot of shared pain in this financial consequence, but we wanted to keep the team because we had searched around the globe to find the best people, and we wanted to keep them longer term. So when we were to launch, they would come back. In fact, they did. 90% of our folks actually came back to us when we were ready to launch.
Launching a brand and not a ship. Well, there's a great lesson for all of us as we're starting to think through how we're working through whatever we might be facing. We have to see we're launching something far bigger. That's really powerful. You know, one of the biggest differences for Virgin is its commitment to do things differently, better. And this isn't just your customers, your sailors, as you refer to them, but also being better to the environment and the communities you sail to. Can you give us a specific story about the commitments the company has made and why these commitments are so important?
So the commitments we're making in terms of the environment really is about changing sailing for good, changing business for good. That's part of the Virgin business purpose. It's part of our DNA. It fits into our epic sea change. We took a lot of time in designing our ships to make sure that they were the most fuel efficient ships that could be built at the time. We are focused on being net zero carbon emissions by 2050. It's a long way to go. We're committed to doing it. It all goes down to the culture that you're trying to create. And if you have the global culture, the details will get filled in by the teams. You come up and say, we want to be environmentally friendly. Well, the teams come up with these fantastic ideas of just eliminating waste. If you plan for it properly, you can reduce consumption.
Yeah.
And we take that savings and then invest in sustainable products, the paper cups that we use, because we have to have some things that are disposable, but all those things are from a sustainable source. Yeah. They're more costly, but you fund that by eliminating a lot of the waste.
You know, you have a tattoo and piercing parlor on board. some of the businesses aren't as good at embracing what we might call new normals. What advice would you give other business leaders to have an open mind to those kinds of change?
Change is hard. Change is easier in an environment when you're starting from scratch, which is one of the advantages that we have over the other guys, is that they've been doing it for a long time. Their customers won't let them change because they're used to the, so you have to be able to say, I can't please all the people all the time. And that's hard to do for a hospitality guy like me who wants everybody to be happy. You can't please all the people all the time. I said, if we're going to differentiate, there are going to be people who aren't going to like this. That's the hard pill to swallow. But more people will love it, and the ratings are showing that.
So you have to be willing to have some people say, this was a bad experience for me. And you're okay with that?
Well, I'm never okay with it. I always want to please everyone. But I think what's better is making sure that the people we get on board the ship are the right people, the people who will love this experience. And that takes a little bit of time, frankly, as you launch a product, to educate consumers as to what we're all about and educate travel agents. So we do a lot of training now. And it was hard to do before you had a ship in the water that you can show them what the experience is. But now that we have travel agents on board and say, okay, now I get it. Now I understand what it's all about. And you have people coming off raving about the experience, 35% of them booking a new cruise before they get off. We want word of mouth to be the number one form of advertising. We have told everybody, there's nobody can get off that ship that says they didn't have a good time. But what it boils down to is, who is your customer? And who are you trying to make happy? Who are you trying to please? And making sure that you're up with those latest trends and making sure that you're being able to deliver what those things are. So staying close to what's happening in your industry, outside your industry, and getting sense of what are those factors and how do you react to them. I mean, companies making a lot of money by selling Wi-Fi, but it's like a basic human right today to have Wi-Fi. We're not going to charge for it. We're not going to tick you off. We're not going to nickel and dime you. We're going to include it. We'll find ways to offset that. We got to replace that revenue stream somewhere. Knowing who your customer is, what they want, and what do they may not know that they want in the future. That's important.
I see everything that's so driven by you is about customer service, but it sounds like a really important aspect is making sure the wrong people aren't becoming your customers. Is there a magic to that? How are you doing that?
It's education across the board. It's educating travel agents. Social media is a really important part of that. Influencers are an important part to showcasing what our ship is and what our ship is not. There will be people who will self-select out, but more and more people are selecting in. So that's different. And listen, I will tell you, I get emails every week of people saying, I've been cruising for 20 years and I've been on every line and I will never go on another cruise other than Virgin Voyages again. Now, we're not here to hurt the other cruise companies, just creating a different type of an experience.
Right. So everybody we've had as a guest has in some way been a part of a team. But while a lot of corporate groups talk about their team, many of them really aren't teams. They're just a bunch of individuals who just happen to have the same business card. What are the elements that take a group from a collection of one-offs and makes them a team? What are some of the things that you look as you're building your team?
Yeah, great question. I roll back to fundamentals, make sure that they understand the corporate culture and they are buying in to the corporate culture and they have the commitment and the dedication. I spend time with my teams. I like to walk around and talk to people and go see people in the res department and talk to people down on the 5th floor and up on the 7th floor and see what they're doing. And during COVID, it was hard to do that because every meeting had to be planned. You didn't have a chance to go out and socialize and meet the team. And that hurt. I needed that. So I'm back. I'm glad that we're back to a somewhat normal work environment. We're 3 days in the office. We call them collaboration days, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And we work remotely on Mondays and Fridays. We hire different talents, people that are from the cruise industry because we need that expertise. We hire people that are from Virgin to help us bring that secret sauce to the table and what that means. We hire people that are creative elements, making sure that they have the right culture, they understand that culture and understand what inspires them. What inspires me, and I tell this to my team all the time, is being part of creating something different, being part of creating something so successful that I feel ownership and I look back and I can be proud of what we've done. And I can be proud of the things that I did at Disney Cruise Line. I can be proud of what we have created here, something very different and very unique, because that's what we can offer. I can't always compete and provide the biggest salary and the best bonus, but what I can deliver is pride of saying that I was part of creating something that's different. That inspires people and it motivates them and it makes them stay with you.
Well, Tom McAlpin, different was a word that really stood out here today. I am grateful that today you joined us to be a corporate competitor.
Glad to be there. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Before I jump into my top 3 lessons from Tom's interview, I wanted to thank Grace Carr from Branson, Missouri, for reaching out to share how much she identifies with nearly everything our guests talk about. She had some great examples, but it's because of her background in basketball and all that she is trying to achieve in her own business life. Thank you for listening, Grace. And listeners, I'd love to hear from you too. If you want to connect with me at maxwellleadership.com/Don, I'd love to respond, maybe even recognize your kind words here in our outro. So as I thought through everything I learned in this last window with Tom, it struck me that here he was, this executive who was integral in the building of 2 really iconic brand spaces, Disney Cruise Line's Virgin Voyages, 2 very, very different customer experiences. Yet they used the same basic playbook. They understood that differentiation was going to be the key to their success. And to be able to do that, you had to spend the time, spend the resources to truly know your audience and what matters to that audience. And then you have to decide what it is you're willing to give up in that entire experience. Be comfortable with the idea that some people are just not going to like it. Some people aren't going to be in line with what it is you're building. But to build correctly, you have to hire people that have a clear understanding of that cultural umbrella you'll be covering them with. Tom McAlpin gave us so much content today about not just building a product, but building a brand. I hope you will leave this conversation as a better corporate competitor. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir.
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll. Thanks for listening to the show. I would be so grateful if you left us a rating and a review. We will be rolling out a new episode every Wednesday. To be the first to listen, subscribe to the podcast on our website, corporatecompetitorpodcast.com. Plus, as a thank you gift, you will receive a free chapter from one of my best-selling books on the habits of high-performing teams. Stay in touch by connecting with me on social media at Don Yeager, Yaeger, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next week, I appreciate you.